I never thought a simple drive would turn into one of the most unforgettable, heart-wrenching nights of my life. It started like any other evening, me, my driver, and a destination I thought was safe. But that night, everything changed in a way I never saw coming. You know that feeling when your gut screams something is wrong, but you try to ignore it? That's exactly where I was. I begged my driver to stop the car, to pull over, to just slow down and listen to what I had to say. But he didn't. He kept going, like he had somewhere urgent to be, like he was running from something or maybe someone. The tension in the air was thick, and every passing second felt heavier than the last. I want to take you through what happened step by step because this isn't just a story about a drive or a missed stop, it's a story about trust, betrayal, and the unexpected ways people reveal their true selves when you least expect it. I didn't know then that this ride would lead me to uncover a secret that would shake everything I believed about the people closest to me. There's something about being trapped in a moving car, with nowhere to run and nowhere to hide, that makes everything raw and real. And that's when the truth started to unfold. The driver, someone I thought I could rely on, suddenly seemed like a stranger. His silence was louder than any words he could have spoken, and the way he avoided my eyes made my heart sink deeper. I kept asking, pleading really, to stop and talk, but the car kept moving forward, faster and faster. I couldn't help but wonder, what was he hiding? Who was he running from? Or maybe, who was he protecting? I wish I had known how much that ride would change me, how it would force me to face things I wasn't ready for. You might be thinking, why didn't I just get out? Or why didn't I call someone? I kept hoping for a chance to understand, to make sense of what was happening. Sometimes, when you're caught in moments like that, your mind freezes, your words fail you, and all you can do is hold on tight and hope for the best. This story isn't just about me or my driver, it's about what happens when the people we trust most start to show us a side of themselves we never expected. What I found out that night was painful, shocking, and something I never wanted to believe. But it's real, and it's raw. And it's a reminder that sometimes, the people who promise to be there for us can be the ones who hurt us the most. As I share this with you, I'm still processing everything, still trying to make sense of the pieces. And I promise, by the end of this story, you'll understand why I begged him to stop and why he just didn't listen. So stay with me because the truth is coming, and it's not what you expect. This is a true story about trust broken, secrets uncovered, and the painful reality of infidelity. But for now, all I can say is this: that night, the car didn't stop, and neither did the nightmare that followed. The night air felt colder as the city lights blurred past the windows, and I sat there, heart pounding, trying to piece together what was happening. My driver, someone who had always been quiet but reliable, suddenly seemed like a completely different person. I kept looking at him, searching for a clue, anything that could explain why he was ignoring me, why he was refusing to stop. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles white, and his jaw was clenched like he was holding back something big. It was clear this wasn't just about the destination anymore. There was a weight in the silence between us that I couldn't shake. Earlier that day, everything had felt normal, even ordinary. We'd laughed a little, exchanged small talk about the weather, the traffic, things I now realize were just distractions, ways to keep the real story hidden. I remember feeling completely at ease, trusting that he would get me home safely like he always did. But now, with every mile that passed, the distance between us grew in a way I hadn't expected. It was as if the driver I knew was being swallowed by someone else, someone secretive, almost desperate. I kept asking him why he wouldn't stop, my voice shaky but firm. Please, just pull over. I need to get out. I need to know what's going on. But there was no answer, only the hum of the engine and the steady rhythm of tires on the road. The streets felt unfamiliar, winding away from the familiar places I knew. I wondered if he was taking me somewhere else, somewhere I didn't want to be. My mind raced with questions. Was he involved in something dangerous? Or was he protecting someone, maybe even himself? The thought that this might have something to do with infidelity crept in quietly, like a shadow I tried to ignore. I thought about the people in my life, about trust and betrayal, and how sometimes those things hide in the smallest moments, a look, a lie, a choice to stay silent. There was something about that night that felt like the beginning of a story I never wanted to hear but couldn't turn away from. The driver's silence wasn't just awkward, it was heavy, filled with secrets I could almost taste in the air. I wanted to believe there was a simple explanation, but deep down, I knew there wasn't. As the car kept moving, I realized that this wasn't just about a ride anymore, it was about facing a truth I had been avoiding. A truth that would change everything I thought I knew. And even though I begged him to stop, even though I needed answers, the journey was far from over. The silence in the car grew heavier with every mile, like a thick fog settling between us. I kept stealing glances at the driver, trying to read the expression on his face, but it was almost impossible. His eyes were fixed ahead, distant, as if his mind was somewhere else entirely. I wondered if he even heard me anymore, or if my words had just become background noise in the storm raging inside him. The more I thought about it, the more questions crowded my mind, questions I didn't want to ask but couldn't stop myself from considering. Back at home, everything had seemed fine, or so I thought. But now, sitting there, I remembered a few odd moments I had brushed aside. Little things, like the way he had avoided my gaze that afternoon, or how his phone buzzed constantly, always kept just out of my reach. I had convinced myself it was nothing, just the usual stress, but now those small details took on a new, unsettling meaning. Could it be that he was hiding more than just a secret? Was there something, or someone, that he didn't want me to find out about? My mind raced back to the conversations I had overheard, not direct, but enough to catch my attention. The hushed tones, the cryptic messages, the subtle changes in his behavior. Could this be connected to the night's drive? I didn't want to admit it, but the thought of infidelity kept creeping in. The idea of betrayal felt like a knife twisting slowly inside me. It wasn't just about trust, it was about everything I thought our relationship stood for. And now, with the driver's refusal to stop, I felt trapped in more ways than one. At the same time, there was a part of me that wanted to understand his side, the reasons behind his silence, his escape. What was so urgent that he couldn't stop? Was he afraid? Was he protecting someone? The more I tried to figure it out, the less clear the picture became. I realized this wasn't just a simple story of wrong and right, but a tangled web of emotions, decisions, and consequences that I was only beginning to unravel. The city lights flickered past like distant memories, each one reminding me of the life I thought I had, and the unknown future waiting ahead. I could feel the tension building like a storm ready to break, but for now, all I could do was hold on and wait. Because whatever was coming next, I knew it wouldn't be easy, and the answers I desperately needed were still just out of reach. The city around us grew quieter as the night deepened, the usual hum of life fading into an eerie stillness that only made the tension in the car worse. I could feel my heart beating faster, a mix of fear and confusion swirling inside me. Every moment felt stretched out, as if time itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The driver's refusal to stop was no longer just frustrating, it was unsettling, almost like he was racing towards something I wasn't meant to see yet. I tried to break the silence again, my voice barely above a whisper. "Please, just tell me where we're going." But he didn't answer. Instead, the car turned onto a narrow street I didn't recognize, one lined with closed shops and dim streetlights flickering overhead. It was a part of town I had never been to, and with every turn, my sense of safety slipped further away. The windows felt like walls closing in around me, and I wished more than anything I could get out, or at least understand what was happening. Suddenly, his phone buzzed again, and for a moment, he glanced down, his face hardening. That small reaction was the first crack in his calm facade. I wondered who was on the other end, what message had unsettled him so much. Was it the person he was running from, or someone tied to the secret I was afraid of? I wanted to reach out, to demand answers, but the words caught in my throat. The air between us was thick with unsaid things, and I realized this wasn't just about the ride anymore, it was about the truth he was holding back. My mind flashed back to the subtle signs I had missed, the unexplained absences, the late nights, the feeling that something was off even when everything seemed fine. Was this the moment where all of it came crashing down? I didn't want to believe it, but deep down I knew I was on the edge of something painful. The driver's silence felt like a wall I couldn't break through, and the longer the ride went on, the more I felt trapped, both physically and emotionally. As we pulled up outside a dimly lit building, my heart stopped for a second. I didn't know what awaited me inside, but I knew the moment to face the truth was close. The car engine idled, the night pressing in around us, and for a brief second, the driver finally looked at me. His eyes were tired, filled with something I couldn't name: regret? Fear? Shame? I wanted to ask so many questions, but I also knew that whatever happened next would change everything. The ride wasn't over, and neither was the story. The driver's eyes met mine briefly, and in that moment, something shifted, a flicker of hesitation, like he was deciding whether to finally let the truth slip or keep it buried deeper. The silence between us was unbearable, thick with unspoken words and growing tension. Then, without a warning, he turned the key in the ignition and pulled away from the curb, driving past the building we had just stopped in front of. My heart sank. Why didn't we stop? What was he trying to avoid? I tried to steady my voice. Where are you taking me? Please, just tell me. But again, no answer. The night stretched on, and the cityscape changed from dimly lit streets to quieter, almost deserted roads. The uncertainty gnawed at me like a relentless ache, each mile taking me farther away from everything I thought I knew. Then, out of nowhere, his phone rang again, this time with an urgency that made him flinch. He glanced at the screen, biting his lip, before finally answering in a low voice. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but his tone was tense, strained. After a few moments, he hung up and, for the first time, finally spoke to me, his voice barely more than a whisper. You don't know the whole story. Those words hit me harder than I expected. What could he possibly mean? I wanted to demand answers, but the driver's face was guarded, as if opening up would break something fragile between us. Then, in a move that caught me completely off guard, he pulled the car over on a quiet street and turned to face me. There's someone you need to know about, he said, eyes locked on mine. Suddenly, the story I thought I was living, the betrayal, the silence, the mystery, took on a new layer I hadn't seen coming. It wasn't just about a secret relationship or a simple act of infidelity. It was something bigger, something tangled in fear and protection. He told me about a woman, someone from his past who had come back into his life unexpectedly. Someone who threatened not just him, but everything he cared about. As he spoke, the pieces began to shift in my mind. The late-night calls, the avoidance, the urgency, it wasn't just about hiding a mistake. It was about keeping a dangerous secret safe, a secret that could destroy more than just trust between two people. I wanted to believe him, but my heart was still pounding with doubt. How do you trust someone when every word feels like it could be hiding another truth? The more he revealed, the deeper the conflict grew inside me. Was this really about protection, or was it just another layer of deception? The night seemed to close in around us as the car idled, the weight of what I was hearing pressing down hard. I realized that the ride I begged to stop was far from over, and that the secrets it held were only beginning to surface. Whatever happened next, I knew I was on the edge of a turning point, one that would force me to face realities I hadn't been ready for. The driver's story wasn't just a confession, it was a warning. And as the night stretched on, I had to decide how much more I was willing to hear, and how far I was willing to go to find the truth. The air inside the car felt suffocating as the driver's words hung between us. His story about the woman from his past, the one he was protecting me from, was starting to make sense, but it was also twisting the knife in my heart. I was caught between relief and a new kind of fear. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about danger, secrets, and a complicated web of emotions I never imagined I'd be tangled in. He took a deep breath and then told me everything. How this woman had been part of his life years ago, someone he cared about deeply but who had made choices that put them both in difficult situations. He said she had reappeared suddenly, reaching out for help, dragging him back into a world he wanted to escape. That's why he wouldn't stop the car before, because he was trying to keep me safe from the fallout of a situation I didn't understand yet. As the truth unfolded, I felt the tension inside me unravel just enough to let some of the fear slip away. But the story wasn't finished. He confessed that he had been keeping secrets from me not out of malice but because he was afraid of what would happen if the truth came out too soon. The silence, the sudden detours, the hidden phone calls, it was all part of protecting me from a storm I didn't even know was brewing. We sat there for a moment in heavy silence, the city lights casting shadows across his face. I wanted to believe him, to trust that this was about protection and not betrayal. But part of me still ached with doubt. How could I be sure he wasn't hiding something else? Just as I was about to ask, the driver's phone buzzed again. This time, I noticed a message preview that made my stomach drop. "She's here. Are you ready?" His face paled, and before I could say a word, the car's engine roared to life, speeding toward a place neither of us spoke about. The car stopped outside an old building, its windows dark and uninviting. He turned to me, voice steady but low, "You have to see this for yourself. It's the only way you'll understand." Inside, the truth revealed itself in a way I never expected. The woman he spoke about wasn't just a figure from the past, she was someone connected to a deeper betrayal, one that involved not just him, but people I thought I knew too well. As the layers peeled back, I realized the driver's story was only part of a bigger, darker puzzle. But the biggest shock came when he turned to me and said, "There's one more thing." I wasn't the only one keeping secrets. The room grew cold as I waited for the next truth to fall, realizing that what I thought was the climax was only the beginning of an even more complicated story, one that would change everything I believed about trust, loyalty, and the people closest to me. His words hung in the air, heavy and unexpected. I wasn't the only one keeping secrets. For a moment, the silence felt almost unbearable, like the calm right before a storm breaks. I looked at him, searching for answers, but all I found was a tired, conflicted man who had been carrying burdens far heavier than I realized. Slowly, he began to explain. The woman from his past, the one who had pulled him back into a world he wanted to escape, wasn't acting alone. She was connected to someone I knew well, someone I trusted. The pieces suddenly fell into place, not as isolated moments but as parts of a complicated betrayal that ran deeper than just one person's mistakes. It wasn't just infidelity, it was a web of lies involving people close to me, people who had been hiding in plain sight. I felt a mix of shock, sadness, and anger swirl inside me. The driver's story had started with a simple plea to stop the car, but it ended with me realizing how fragile trust really is. It made me question everything I thought I understood about loyalty and honesty. Yet, despite the pain, there was a strange relief in knowing the truth, even if it was messy and difficult. We talked for what felt like hours after that night, piecing together the fragments of stories, secrets, and half-truths. The driver's honesty, even if late, was a turning point. It showed me that sometimes, people keep things hidden not because they want to hurt us, but because they're scared of the consequences. That didn't excuse the silence or the distance it created, but it helped me see things from a different angle. In the end, I made a choice, not just about the driver or the woman from his past, but about myself. I decided to face the truth, no matter how uncomfortable or painful. I realized that real strength comes from confronting reality, even when it shakes the foundation of what we believe. Holding on to secrets only builds walls, but opening up, no matter how hard, is the first step toward healing. This story isn't just about betrayal or infidelity. It's about the complexities of human relationships, the gray areas where trust can be broken but also rebuilt. It's a reminder that sometimes, the hardest journeys are the ones inside ourselves, where we have to confront not just others, but our own fears and doubts. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this, it's that silence can be just as damaging as any lie. Communication, even when it's messy and imperfect, is what keeps connections alive. And sometimes, the road to understanding is long and winding, but worth every step. That night in the car, when I begged my driver to stop and he didn't, it wasn't just a moment of confusion or fear. It was the start of a story that taught me about trust, pain, and the power of truth. And even though the ride was full of twists I never saw coming, I'm grateful for the journey, because it showed me what it really means to face reality, and to keep moving forward, no matter what. 8.